Joining us now, retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Dave Deptula. Thanks so much for taking the time.
You bet, Jim.
So we've now seen multiple airspace violations by Russia, but both drones, fighter jets over Estonia, which most NATO leaders call deliberate. How do you rate the NATO response? Has it been strong enough?
Well, I think it's developing. The EU leadership is finally getting serious about the threat that Russia is directly presenting them. And as a result, they're planning stronger defenses to deal with these Russian threats. I think you mentioned earlier that today was the seventh meeting of the European political community in Copenhagen, and EU security was at the top of that agenda. They discussed things like building a drone wall, plus issued an announcement on providing Ukraine with a technical advantage over Russia. And the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is, I think you're aware of it and probably reported it today, the U.S. announced that it will be providing targeting information on Russia for Ukraine. So that's a huge move. And I think they're moving toward understanding the reality that Putin only respects strength, and it's time to start showing some of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that intel sharing and also this consideration, apparently, of supplying Tomahawk missiles. Do you see that as a substantive change in this administration's approach to Russia?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'd say is, finally, the fact of the matter is that NATO, led by the United States, needs to stop providing sanctuary to Russia's forces by removing all restrictions on the use of deep attack weapons that the Allies have provided Ukraine. The Russian energy sector, as a result of Ukraine's own weapon development and use, is imploding with a 38% loss in refinery capacity. And it stands to cascade failure if Ukraine can thrash the surviving refineries to halt their output. So the U.S. provision of advanced cruise missiles such as Tomahawks could help them do that, and they ought to be provided to Ukraine immediately.
I wonder, when you join those things together, you've got a lot of damage to Russia's oil infrastructure, and that is manifesting itself in declining oil revenue. You have Russian progress effectively stalled on the battlefield. And you had a Russian effort to attempt to swing the Moldova election, right, that failed. I mean, these are multiple ways that Russia tries to exert influence in Europe. Do you see the tide turning against Russia?
No, absolutely. I do. I mean, the Russian disinformation that is so prevalent across social media and other means, that they're in the driver's seat, is simply that. It's propaganda. They're losing. They know they're losing, and we need to help them in accelerating their loss, or at least putting on sufficient pressure that they realize that continuing their aggression really is not in their best interest. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we've already seen the tide turn. I just wish we'd made this realization and helped Ukraine to a greater degree 3 years ago instead of waiting till today. But the fact of the matter is, Russia's losing. They're not going to win. And we need to accelerate the stop of this war by stopping providing sanctuary to the Russians, and take this fight to the heart of what means the most to Russia.
I suppose the next question is, does Putin believe he's losing? Because if he doesn't, he sticks with it, and might increase the risk of escalation with Europe.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question, Jim. And you know what? No one knows except Putin himself. Mm-hmm. But and remember, one of the biggest mistakes the West makes is in mirror imaging. And Putin does not think like your average Western diplomat or military leader. So it's difficult to tell. However, I would suggest to you that Putin's escalation rhetoric is really a bluff to intimidate and to divide us. Remember, he was a KGB operative, so he is a master in terms of misinformation. He talks about escalation because he knows he's losing on the battlefield. Whether he acknowledges it or not, because if he thought he was winning, he wouldn't be threatening. And the reality is, every time NATO has stood firm, Putin's backed down. So he does understand deterrence and he respects strength. So if we let his rhetoric dictate our actions, we hand him the very victory that he can't achieve militarily. So the real danger isn't escalation, it's self-deterrence.
Lieutenant General Dave Deptula, thanks so much for joining.
Have a great evening, Jim.